For anyone who has done a 10K race, or hiking, or some kind of exploring or mountaineering, we all know that deaths and fatalities are a reality of those hobbies, and while unfortunate, they do happen. It's just kind of the way of the world, you know. This, however, is the case of Paul Michael LeMaitre from Seward, Alaska. He was 66 years old, and this happened on July the 4th, 2012, at 7 p.m. This disappearance that will be in this video is apparently one of the oldest races in the world, at a location where they had never before had a fatality or a disappearance. Well, until now, but this is Mount Marathon in Seward, Alaska. Seward is a port city just 60 miles south of Anchorage, Alaska. With its primary elevation at sea level, the Mount Marathon is described as follows from the Seward Chamber of Commerce website. Launched in 1915, the 3-mile Mount Marathon is a combination run, hike, and scramble up Seward's signature 3,022-foot mountain peak. The race is limited to a certain number of runners that are chosen through a lottery and competitive activities. The race starts in downtown Seward and then heads up the mountain to the summit and then back down. The site states that minor injuries are common, but major injuries and disappearances are very uncommon. They don't happen. The exact length of the course is 3.1 to 3.5 miles, depending on that year's layout. The average angle of the trail is 38 degrees, the steepest slope is about 60 degrees, and it starts at the corner of 4th Avenue and Adams Street in downtown Seward. The finish line is on 4th Avenue in Washington. On July 4th, 2012, Paul Michael LeMaitre had done all the preparation possible for a race of a lifetime. At 66 years young, Paul was in very good shape for his age and was a civilian employee at Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson. He was a counselor who assisted people leaving the military and getting their resumes in order. He had registered for the Mount Marathon and was assigned the bib number 548. Paul had family members at the start line, 3 p.m., when the gun went off to begin the race. Paul had decided that it was a feat to finish, not to race to the finish. He just wanted to make a respectable run and complete the course in a timely manner. Just as a barometer of how fast this race can be completed, Fred Moore, age 72, completed this year's course in 1 hour, 11 minutes, and 34 seconds. And this was that man's 43rd consecutive race. As the race was taking place, there were a few unusual events that were occurring. In 2 separate incidents, runners fell into a steep section of the course and were seriously injured. There are very few details about what exactly happened, other than the injuries are listed as serious. This is a very unusual occurrence for the race, as the Chamber of Commerce has a proud history of being a safe race. Paul was wearing black shorts and a black running shirt. He had very poor eyesight, and he was not wearing his glasses the day of the race. From all accounts that were reviewed, Paul was the last racer on the mountain. A July 9th, 2012 article on the KTUU.com website had this explanation of the last person to see Paul. According to the chamber, a race timing crew stationed at the top of the mountain began its descent around 5:45 p.m. The lead timer, who was not named in the statement, spoke with LeMaitre about 6 p.m. when he was nearing the mountaintop. The timer had reported that LeMaitre verbally confirmed that he wanted to continue. Chamber officials wrote Monday. He looked good and did not demonstrate any sign of distress or physical or emotional concern, and was moving slowly and steadily up the mountain. The timer then continued on down the trail. At 6 p.m., a race official spoke to Paul's wife and explained that he had been seen and was fine. They explained that if he wasn't down the mountain in 90 minutes, she should contact the authorities, but they thought he'd be okay. At 8 p.m., Paul's wife contacted race officials and notified them that Paul had not come back from the run. Race officials contacted the Seward Fire Department, who in turn contacted the Alaska State Troopers, and a search was started. Searchers encountered treacherous conditions as they tried to cover every conceivable location where Paul may have wandered. The visibility was awful, and fog had hit the mountain. There was a sprinkle of snow on top. Ground searchers confronted 2 black bears that ran away from the people. There were no grizzlies sighted on the mountain. Searchers carefully examined the area and found no tracks. Alaska State Troopers, helo teams, responded to and continually recovered the mountain with the infrared from the thing. I think it's called forward-looking infrared radar. It usually planes will have it on the front so they can scan for heat signatures in the case of someone missing in treacherous terrain, or just they can cover a lot of ground faster by doing it that way. And apparently in this case they found nothing. They found no heat signatures, they found no signs of Paul. To understand the scope of the search for Paul, the Alaska Dispatch ran an article on July 9th, 2012, explaining who contributed to the effort to find this runner. Hundreds of volunteers have been involved in the rescue operation. The Alaskan Mountain Rescue, the Nordic Ski Patrol, Alaska Search and Rescue Dogs, Bear Creek Volunteer Fire Department, the National Park Service, Seward Police and Fire Department, the Air National Guard, Alaska State Troopers, and many Seward residents, as well as racers who returned to the Seward to help with the search. Several dog teams from the Alaska Search and Rescue Dogs did cover the mountain in attempting to find Paul's scent. Nothing of value was found by the canine search teams. The search was very comprehensive, and they searched for 4.5 days in this area, and they failed to find any evidence that he was ever on the mountain at all, when we know that he was 200 feet from the summit at 5:45 p.m. on July 4th. Paul actually saw the direction that the race official was walking down the mountain, so he knew the correct path to take, and he was less than 2 miles from his family and safety. Unfortunately, this is another name in a long list of missing persons cases where the person last in line of a hike or a run or a marathon or whatever disappears, and they're just never found. And in the book it says that you would think there'd be an easy explanation for what happened, but there's not, because Paul was he was in pretty good shape. He was very healthy. He was a normal everyday guy in the military and stuff. So I know some people in the military are not in good shape, but usually, especially at his age, he was in very good shape. As of the time of this retelling, he has been declared legally dead, and he was also not a small man either. He stood at 6'2" and was 215 pounds. So he wasn't could easily, not be found. He wasn't a small person. And it's weird that in some of these stories you find out that that whenever they use the radar or the infrared stuff, that they still can't find anything, no sign of anybody. There's barely even any proof they were ever on the mountain at all. And it says that in the case that he got completely disoriented because he had poor eyesight. So in the event that he dropped off the other side or fell off a cliff or something like that, they apparently had searched the backside of the mountain, and there was nothing of value there that would relate to him at all. And he is listed as deceased by exposure. And his family did write an obituary for him in the Anchorage newspaper. Some other notes are randomly the search was marred by bad weather, fog, like the snow, as I previously mentioned. Paul had a poor eyesight. The canines could not find a scent on the trail at all, and he was also the last runner on the trail. And again, the trail isn't super long, so you'd think that they would be able to find something, but they didn't, and that's why this is in this book. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. I think if you comment, then, I don't know, I hear people telling me that it does something to the algorithm. So, yeah, if you liked the video, good. If you didn't, that's okay too. Just have a good night.